Hey guys, it's Heather at Homeschool Culture, and I'm going to answer your questions today regarding high school. So quite a few of you reached out and did ask questions, and so I went ahead and printed those out, and I'm going to be reading those off today. I'm going to go ahead and jump in. I don't think it's going to be very long, but if for some reason it is over like 20 minutes, I might split it into two, like a part one and part two. These are really, really good questions, so I'm glad that y'all asked them. And if you are coming on here and you haven't seen any of my previous videos where I asked y'all to send in questions, please feel free to put questions down below. If I get a lot more questions, I'll do another video, or if not, I'll just answer your question down below. Being a homeschool mom, I understand there are things that you just don't know. So like whenever I had to teach my kid how to read, I was so thankful for those moms out here that were previous elementary teachers and went over how they taught their kids how to read. And so being a former high school teacher and high school counselor, I do have that prior knowledge that I feel blessed to be able to share with y'all. I don't have all the answers, but I will do my best here today. So my first question comes from a fellow YouTuber, Homeschool with Jen. If you have not seen her channel, she is a great resource. I always go to her channel whenever I'm looking for history, but she has tons and tons of other things as well, but she always pulls together really awesome history curriculum for her middle schoolers. So go check her out if you haven't. But her comment is, thank you so much for doing this. Do colleges look down on giving high school credit if a student does high school work, i.e. Algebra 1 in 8th grade? And I would say absolutely not. I would say that because since I've been in education since 2005, and I want to say even prior to that, public school systems have been giving high school credit to students in the 8th grade. Some of the courses, like I taught a computer science course, so you could do something like that. Algebra 1, English 1, I know I did that with my child. Spanish 1 is one that was done before that I've seen. You could even go and do biology, like just bypass 8th grade and do biology, especially if it's a lot of the stuff that your kiddo's already seen before anyways. Those are just things to think about. With my daughter, we kind of bypassed 8th grade. And so we kind of had like an 8th grade, 9th grade year. And before I forget, I do have 3 videos that I did last year on like planning for high school transcripts. And I can't think of the other one. Maybe it's only 2. But I do have those, and I will link those down below because that's just some additional information that I was able to get out. I think it was last summer, if not maybe the summer before, that you might want to look at as well. Okay, the second one is, I struggle with grading in subjects where it's mostly reading. I try not to do the same old reading workbook quiz test for every subject, but then have no idea how to give him a grade. Also, do you give credit for subjects that you decide to stop? For example, we started a logic and did not like it at all. He finished at chapter 12, not even half. I feel that he spent time on this. Do I give him credit for the work he did? Thank you. Okay, so this is how we grade. I'm just going to talk about how we grade, and it might help answer your question. I grade based on if I know that they mastered the knowledge for that class, or even if I do a half of it, potentially half the class. So that's really a personal preference. Do you feel like they adequately deserve, I guess, a half a credit because they've attained that knowledge? Then absolutely give it to them. Now, do I give a test and a quiz for everything? No, I don't. So we're a eclectic homeschool, and therefore I do follow Charlotte Mason on quite a few things. And so a lot of times, like let's say for history, my daughter might read through her history and then do a written narration and never has a quiz or a test. For science, because we go through Dr. Shorman's science, he has tests. And so she follows that guideline, which is like multiple choice test. I'm trying to think what else. For writing's always been, I've talked about this whenever I did her video, is one of the ones I've always had the hardest time because I have never been trained in how to grade writing. And so I am giving that over to Essentials in Writing. I'm actually paying extra this year for her to actually get graded, her papers graded. But with that said, I do not believe that your child has to take every quiz and every test. If you and him if you and the child are going through the material together, you're having conversations, you understand, you actually see that they are following it, understand they can have an adequate conversation with you, etc., then I would just give them credit for that chapter or whatever. So think of it that way. I definitely do not give many tests and quizzes unless it's like math and then like the science program, etc. And then some of the things that I feel like, I'm not really sure how to grade that, then sometimes I just give a pass-fail. So it shows that they actually have completed a course and they passed it, but it's not necessarily a grade. So there's that. And again, look at that transcript video I laid out, because I talked about grading a little bit more in detail, and where I really focus more on letter grades instead of number grades. So hopefully that helps. But specifically to your situation, I would say it really just, I don't know, like if he went, you said not even half, maybe could he pick up a little bit more this year and at least give him a half credit for it, because you can give, like logic would be an elective and you definitely could give a half credit for logic. So maybe something like that. Maybe he can finish it during summer next year, or you could pick up another way that he could get logic in and maybe kind of finish up what you consider like a half credit. That'd be something else to think about. Okay, next question. It says, I am curious your thoughts on dual credit courses. Would you suggest to take for senior year? I'm having a hard time deciding what classes would be good intro into college work. I'm also curious your thoughts on EIW writing. Are you using this coming year? Do you think it is a good fit for a struggling writer that also detests writing? I understand that. I'm pretty sure that he has dysgraphia, so I'm looking for a curriculum that is no fluff. I am wanting him to know how to write for college, the real world. Thank you so much for the videos. Okay, so thank you for your question. Now, let's start with the beginning. If he is struggling, I wouldn't put him in dual credit. And again, I don't know this whole situation, so you're going to have to just really reflect on his abilities and decide that. But whenever I was in public school, the kids that did dual credit, those were your AP kids. At my specific school, we didn't have AP. And so those were like your honor level, your above average level kids were the ones that were doing dual credit. Options for dual credit would be, at least the ones that I have seen, would be like English 1 or English 1301 is here in Texas. It's kind of your basic English. And you do English 1, English 2 for like a full year is how we did it. Algebra, if they're done with Algebra 2, you could go ahead and get them tested and see if they could test into college algebra. Statistics, what else do some of my kiddos take? Trigonometry in college. Again, you just want to make sure they have a foundation. I have another question here that I'm going to bring up real quick regarding dual credit. And she says, I wonder how important it actually is for biology and chemistry to be taken in high school when those would probably have been taken again in college. Okay, and I'll finish reading and see if there's anything else I missed. But I want to touch on that. The problem with the sciences, in my opinion, like biology and chemistry, is they potentially have never seen any of that prior knowledge before, or very little, versus like an English class, they've been writing potentially since elementary, middle school. Grammar, they've been doing that since elementary, middle school, etc. The same with history. U.S. history is a good one to do for dual credit in the very beginning, instead of doing U.S. history at the high school level, doing it for college credit. Sciences, I would be careful with. I have a friend of a friend here locally that and she's, again, a very above average child. She went ahead and was going to bypass high school chemistry and take college chemistry, and she had to bail out before that certain date, so she wouldn't get a grade for it and go back to high school chemistry, just because it assumes that you already have high school level prior knowledge of biology, high school level prior knowledge of chemistry. So I'd be very careful taking sciences at the college level if they haven't had it at the high school level first. I personally don't plan on doing that with my child, but that is an opinion thing, and it's definitely, you need to know your child and their ability. So hopefully that answered both of those. The EIW writing, it says, do you think does it fit for a struggling? I really don't know. When she's done it before, she's always been fine. I have, again, a struggling learner, but he has never done, he's only 5th grade, so he's never done the EIW, so I really don't know that. I would actually contact the company, because sometimes the company will tell you if if it does benefit kids that struggle in writing, and if sometimes they'll tell you how to tweak it for a kid that struggles in writing. So I would definitely contact the company on that. Also just look on YouTube for other suggestions in writing with struggling writers. Hopefully I got all that. The next question, I actually had to do homework on. It says, any ideas on how to do current event electives? As my child gets older, I'd like to see her learn how to keep up with world events, which I totally agree with. And so I was sitting here thinking, and I was like, I don't really know if I've ever done a current event. I've never even thought about doing current events with my kids. Now, we're a household that listens to news constantly, that discuss news constantly. They know exactly what's going on around the world, the major things that, most American adults do, or at least I hope they do. And we talk about it a lot. And so could I potentially give them a credit of current events? I feel like I probably could, because again, she's up on it more than probably most adults are. But there was a podcast that I just literally happened to come across, which I was so thankful for because I saw your comment and I was thinking to myself, I don't know that answer. It is called A Delectable Education. It is a Charlotte Mason based podcast, but don't let that scare you. But I will definitely link this down below for any of you that are interested. But they discuss how to do current events at the high school level. And I was like, this is awesome. I definitely want to pursue it with my kiddo, maybe next school year, just because her plate's kind of loaded this one. And then also I was thinking about doing it even maybe for a co-op class. I thought that would be fun as well. So again, it's the Delectable Education Podcast. It is a Charlotte Mason philosophy podcast, but I will link it down below, and it's specific to current events. Great information. Like I listened to it twice and I was like, this is really good. So I would definitely say go listen to them and get some great ideas. Okay, the last one, two more. Am I good on time? Yeah, okay, I'm good on time. This might go a little over 20 minutes. Okay, it says, can you talk about preparing for the SAT and ACT? I have an 8th grader. What would you do? Okay, what do you do to make your transcript? I will think of more. Okay, so the transcript, again, I have a video on, and I'll try to link that down below. There are programs. I use Excel, and I think I even show in the video how to set it up in Excel. I don't want to pay for something that I have, and I'm pretty sure it's most of them are yearly subscriptions. I guess you could just write everything down on paper and then like their senior year go in and pay once. I don't really know, maybe. But I just choose to use Excel, and it makes it a lot easier for me. Transcripts can be daunting, but again, after doing thousands of them as a high school counselor, it's really not. And so I have that whole video on that. But your other question was the ACT and SAT. Okay, so for the ACT and SAT, you obviously don't want to take the pre-SAT and the pre-ACT. There are different levels that you can take at different years. You could have them take all of them, whatever. The benefit of taking the SAT, in my opinion, the benefit of taking the SAT or ACT is actually to get into college, right? Especially if they're going straight to a 4-year university. It's also because if they score high enough, and they have to score pretty substantial, they can get scholarship money. So I am an advocate for kiddos taking that. The only reason why we're not in our family is because she is going to get her roughly 60 hours at community college and then transfer. And so those scholarship opportunities wouldn't be available. She would get something like a transfer scholarship. And so that's why, from what I've looked into, I don't see any scholarship opportunities for kids that are transferring in for those. That's usually for like freshman level. Now they can get it for multiple years, but it's usually at that freshman, sophomore level. And so that's something to think about. But this is where you have to do your due diligence, and you have to call the colleges and ask them, like call the financial aid office or call the scholarship office and ask them these things. Now, if you want your kiddo to take it, they will take it through your local school district, potentially. My local school district here in our little community is tiny and they don't offer it. So we have to drive about 40 minutes to get to one that does offer it. But you need to start calling, I would say early to mid-August, start calling the high school counselors. If it's a bigger district, they might have a testing coordinator that does it. but find out who, so you just call the campus, obviously, ask who is in charge of the SAT and ACT, and then talk to that person, let them know that you are a homeschool parent wanting to sign your homeschooler up for the SAT. As a high school public counselor, I had homeschool kids coming to me and testing on SAT and ACT days, including the pre-SAT. Now, not everybody does both. Like, we only did SAT and pre-SAT. And so then you have to, again, you might have to call other districts and find out who gives what. I want to say at one time our community college offered the ACT, but I was trying to look specifically for this question to see if that was still true, and I couldn't find anything. So I'm either making that up or maybe they don't do it anymore. But you can also potentially reach out to the colleges and see if they offer them as well, especially if you're in a very small community. I hope that answers your question. Now, on the prep side of it, I have friends who their kids scored really well. I mean, these are high achieving kids anyways, but their kids scored really well, and they just did the SAT, ACT prep books, kind of like the TSI prep book that I showed you that my daughter's gonna be doing this year. They did the SAT and ACT version of those. There's also, I know where my husband works in Arlington, there is a lady, I wanna say in Burleson, and I know this is not gonna fit all of y'all, but she actually has an SAT, I'm not sure if it's both. It's either both or SAT prep class that she does with like kids. And I don't know if it's individual or group. Those can get pricey, but if it's something that like I really need to get, my kiddo is really borderline with a good grade and I need them to get a good grade so they can get the scholarship at the specific college, etc., then maybe it's worth, dishing out a little bit of money up front. Also know that you can take the SAT more than one time. Let's say your kiddo takes the ACT and they score like really good on the math and the writing, but they don't score very good on science. ACT as of a couple years ago had science. I still think it does. They can retake it, and what the colleges normally do is they'll take the best score. So if your kid takes 2 or 3 tests, they'll take the best scores for the individual parts of each test. Does that make sense? And so that way your kiddo has the best chance of getting, into the school and then potentially also getting that scholarship money. So that is something to think about. If you're serious about your kids taking the SAT and ACT, I would do your research on because there is information out there, which one should my child take? I would always advocate take both because you can never really know until you take both. But definitely do those and you have to start calling in August to talk to the counselors, because so as a counselor you predetermine how many tests, kind of like I can't remember, you predetermine how many tests, and you normally can't go over that. So like if we normally did, let's just say 50 tests at my little school that I taught at and was a counselor at, every year, that I might allocate 60 for them to send me. And those can sometimes fill up quick, especially the more and more people that are doing homeschool, etc. And so you're gonna wanna get on a list or whatever and make sure you have adequate time to get on that list and that they don't run out of spots. Because I know here locally that has happened where they're having to go even further out on, to be able to take the test because the local ISD that they're in, they ran out of spots or whatever. And so that's just something to think about on the SAT point. Okay, I'm at 20 something minutes. Okay, last question. I hope that made sense. If I need to clarify anything, please feel free to ask that down below and I'll try to clarify it as best as I can. Okay, so this next lady says, how do you know, I assume it's a lady. Please forgive me if it's not. That's the new clock I got. I showed that on a haul video. Every hour it sings the bird. Okay, it says, I've watched your videos and noticed you choose your own curriculum. Please forgive me if anything I'm asking is redundant. Please don't ever, nothing's redundant, because trust me, it takes a whole lot of us to get all the information out to everybody. How do you know what curriculum, books, assignments to choose so that it aligns with your state requirements? Okay, this is a state-by-state thing. In the state of Texas, you do not have to align with the state requirements as a homeschool because you're considered private school. Now, this is Texas. You're going to have to go into your state and see what those requirements are. I will link down below. Of course, it's a homeschool like coalition website. I can't think of the whole name right now. I will link that down below. You literally click on your state and it kind of outlines all the laws for your state. I try to stay as close as possible on some subjects, only because I know it's going to prepare them for high school. So like for biology, I'm going to stay as close online to make sure when she goes to college, if she takes a biology class, then she won't miss anything. The same with chemistry, things like that. Math, obviously math, you don't want to skip stuff, especially if they're going into college and they're having to take college algebra. Some things like literature, history, things like that, I think kind of vary. So that's just kind of up to you and your kiddo on what you desire for them to learn, or also asking them and letting them be a part of that planning of the learning experience. Okay, it says, do you or do your state decide when your child advances to the next grade? Again, here in Texas, we decide. I don't even know if any states, I know some states require the testing, the yearly testing. I don't know how that works in terms of like if they failed the testing, do they get to move on to the next? I don't know. That's not something that we have to deal with in Texas. So again, look at your specific state. Okay, do you keep track of your child's grades in a grade book? It goes back to grading. I don't keep grades. Of course we did for like the biology and the maths because Dr. Shorman did it on the website. I determine, do they make an A? Have they mastered the information? Yes. Then they make it an A. I might give them a B or whatever. That could be, you have learning objectives for your kiddo. What is that learning objective? And are they meeting it? And so if they are, and they've met all of these learning objectives, then I would go ahead and give them an A in the class. Or if they've, maybe done only, some of it, then maybe a B in the class. And that's how I would grade. But the state doesn't decide that. That is, here in Texas, that is definitely us. And again, I don't keep track. I give A/B grades. I have a whole video on grading. I'll link that down below. That kind of helps you with that. Okay, does test taking require a proctor? Not in Texas. I don't know if there's any specific test outside of Texas. Now, I know like if my daughter was taking some type of class through college, but then again, they have a testing center on campus, so I shouldn't have to proctor anything. Does that mean that your state doesn't? I don't know. You'll have to, again, I apologize. That's some stuff that you'll have to every state's different. Okay, how do you prove what your child is learning meets the state requirements? Well, again, it's just so hard because Texas we literally have to do nothing. Every curriculum should have a set of objectives for that curriculum. And so they might not be obviously exact to the state objectives, but they should be pretty close. And so you should be able to look at your state's objectives. Ours is called TEKS, Texas Essential Skills and Knowledge. And so, knowledge and skills. And so I would go to the TEKS for 10th grade history and I would see what it is. But again, I don't necessarily go off of that, but if I had to, and then I would take this history course and I would look and I would say, okay, does it look, it might not be totally exact, but close enough. And so that's how you would look at, you would look at the objectives and you would just compare them to what the state requirement is. I think that is it. Okay, so it only went 20 something minutes. And so I'm not going to do it into two. I'll just do one part. If you have any other questions, or if you said, Heather, that really didn't answer my question, please feel free to ask it again, or just say, or maybe elaborate on something I did not elaborate on. And I will definitely, if there's a lot of interest, I will definitely make another video, or I will just answer your question individually. Please feel free, if you're watching this and you know the answers to questions down below, please go ahead and put in your experience as well, because I think it does take all of us just to help each other with this world of homeschool that we're in. Okay, on that, I hope you have a super blessed school year. Please don't be afraid of high school. I love teaching high school. I love watching my daughter learn and just blossom. The learning that she's done over these last few years and how much she's blossomed. I do truly believe she's ready. I mentioned in her video that I did for her curriculum that I was decided to hold back on dual credit. And it really was, I feel, a conviction from the Lord. And I also think that it was, and now even just kind of reflecting more, I'm glad that I'm doing it. I think dual credit's great. I think it's great. With that said, the longer we can keep them here with us and learning from us and learning with us, I just think it will just benefit them in the long haul instead of just, throwing them into dual credit or into college classes too soon. And so again, I'll probably put her in some dual credit next year, which would be her senior year. But even then, I don't think I'll do all of it. I keep going back and forth. Like that part of me that wants her just to move on, not because I want to get rid of her, but because I know she's able, I want her to do it. But at the same time, I feel like, I'm just losing time with her, and I'm not willing to do that because she'll be a young graduate. So just things to think about. And if you don't feel comfortable just because all the people around you are doing it, or because somebody, Heather on YouTube said she does this, don't feel like you have to do what the masses do, even within the homeschool community. Do what is best for you and your child. And specifically individuality, because you might have one child that does dual credit very soon, or does maybe high school credit in 8th grade, maybe skips a grade, etc. And then you have this kid over here that isn't, that probably will be with you a lot longer than maybe, most people. And that's okay, because you just want to make sure that they're prepared to the best of your ability, that they're prepared for the real world, for college, for the workforce, military, whatever it is that they plan on doing outside of the high school years. So again, don't feel like you feel rushed. I do that. I feel like I do that. I want to rush her along, and then I think to myself, why am I doing this? We had this whole plan where she was going to graduate college by 19 and then start her master's. And I'm like, why? She has a whole lifetime. So why am I trying to rush the process? Okay, anyways, I hope you have a super blessed day and a blessed week. Again, any questions, put down below, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.